Hi, I'm David Botton. I'm here to have a nice discussion about clog. Many have probably seen my posts in various places, Reddit in particular, on the now it's Libra, right? In terms of the RC chat or other places, where essentially I've talked about a new way of creating GUIs, and for that matter, or even web frameworks, with clog. Now, clog is a multi-platform, multi-device GUI and web framework. Now, at first, a person could probably scratch his head and say, something doesn't seem quite up there. What's the big deal? Isn't it just like any other web server? No, you see, there's something a little bit different here. You see, the model of the web is a doc model. It's a document, a relationship that you have with the servers. The server serves out your document, and essentially you, in a very static way, you go back and forth between your documents and the server. And in fact, things have progressed, right? We know that today there are many ways for a person to be able to connect and to sort of dynamically be able to keep everything alive and keep it working. True. And in fact, we actually use those technologies. In fact, very specifically, though, I use Websockets. So what I do essentially is I have a socket relationship between your app and your GUI. Really, that sounds exactly like X. Yeah, for sure, because that's exactly what it is. When it comes to clog, think more about X than thinking about web platforms. Now, what happens is just like X, I can have a local, right there on the same machine, GUI running, but I'm also able to go ahead and to run it across the country in another place or across the world and still have my GUI appear right there. Now, what's neat, though, and what's different is that this particular technology, meaning web technology, has been around for a long time. It is really great for being able to do fairly low bandwidth work between different places. Again, plus everything's already in place. But the idea is to make use of a live connection. I mean, WebSockets is live the whole time. You're still connected directly to your app the whole time. So that's what makes it different. And again, like I said, the closest model is X. Actually, there are models that are even closer. And I'll tell you which ones. If you actually take a look and you see the way Mac OS X came about, it came from Next. And the way that Next worked was, or for that matter, even Mac OS X really worked the same sort of way. In the case of Next, it was actually PostScript. So what happened is you rendered to PostScript your GUI. That's the way it worked. And then when Mac OS X came out, you were rendering it to PDF. Now, things have changed for sure, and that's not necessarily completely, although still is a little bit, exactly how things work on those platforms. But there's a long history of this type of way of rendering GUIs. So it's different. I understand. What's the big deal? It happens to be that there's no reason why you can't just make something that looks and runs like a web page. And hopefully today we have enough time that I can actually show you using clog to actually go ahead and just produce a web page like any other type of system would it be, and it's very straightforward, and there's no big deal. However, the real key to clog is the fact that it's live. Now, for example, imagine you have an app running on your computer, and you want to go ahead and you want to have live dials that constantly change, and you want to have dynamic things displaying constantly and changing. It's all right there. It's live on the spot. Again, I know there are other ways of doing things, but you see, with WebSockets, you can actually have a true right there alive. Now, by the way, WebSockets is how things are done right now with clog. I mean, there's a limitation to anybody in their time. So I can't only develop so much in so much time. I had to take off a couple months just recently. Again, what can I tell you? Got to make a living. But what happens is that when it comes to the situation, it doesn't necessarily have to have a socket connection. And actually, that's what we're going to go ahead at some point in the future, in some future version of clog. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to essentially marry, right, essentially the guts that exist right now in Chrome, and let's say, for example, the guts that exist in your app, or for that matter, we can use Firefox or others, to basically go ahead and to just directly wire everything right through to the browser control, or for that matter, we can even get a little more refined. But the point is, we can create a very thin protocol in the future running on the local machine, which will give us even better results. Now, understanding that, you know, in a nutshell, bottom line is, he says, we've got this great way of doing things. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at how it works. And again, that's also part of the way the things are different. Most of the time, people think about doing web work that essentially is again, like I said, is a question of states and things like that. But we're gonna look at things, and it's gonna be like programming a GUI, where things are kept in your memory on your server side. In fact, I'll tell you what: if you go ahead and you sever the connection between the web browser and the app at any point, poof, it's all gone. That's it. Everything disappears, and that's it. There's no connection anymore. Everything is gone. In fact, it's very easy to set things up so that a person goes ahead and the second this connection is broken, everything clears out and it's gone, and that's it, like it's never been there. So there's actually a number of security aspects to using clog, and we're not going to explore that, and that actually is somewhat later on. At some point I will write up a couple documents, because part of clog's original existence was around creating a more secure way actually of being able to write, produce, and have web apps. And this is actually a really great way of doing it, again, because all your logic, all your data, everything basically sits behind the counters, and nothing has to sit in JavaScript, for example. In fact, you don't really have to know JavaScript, or for that matter HTML, in order to be able to use clog. But of course, it will help depending on what you're trying to do. So like I said, really, let's go ahead now and let's take a look. We'll go ahead and do a run through basically of the basics of getting clog up and ready and rolling, and then we'll go ahead and we'll move on to some basically app building, what it takes, and how does a general way of clog, and you get a little bit of a little bit of a feel for how the framework works. And I'll tell you, once you see the way the framework works, you'll understand why this is different. You don't think in the same patterns as web pages. Truth of the matter is there's not even a necessity to think about URLs or any of these types of things. Again, just think about it as like rendering your GUI and going back and forth, back and forth. You're basically concentrating on user interfaces, and that's really what it is. So let's say that clog is a user interface, and I say not necessarily just that's what it really is, and that's what it's really about. And of course, web pages is that's easy. In fact, we'll get there. Okay, so let's get started. All right, we're going to get started now on our first clog application. And this is basically the smallest possible application that anyone can make, and it's actually very straightforward. Pretty much, we'll load up clog. We'll go ahead and we'll get ourselves into the clog user package, and we're basically going to initialize clog and get it to be ready to serve at a page. Again, clog is not a web server, although of course it is a web server. It's built on a web server and can certainly serve out pages. And that's really what we're going to see with this specific example, that we'll go ahead and boom, and there it is. Hello world, our very first program. So before going on, let's take a look at our smallest clog program. So the smallest clog program starts out with an initialize to get clog up and running, get the web server behind clog up and running, and get it responding on our index page. Now the index page, when it's selected, goes back to clog and says, hey, I want that page. And clog says, okay, I have in my memory here that that is handled by this particular handler. In fact, that's what we call them. We call them handlers. And they are just functions that respond to events. So for the most part, all of clog is an event-driven interface. In this particular case, our onNewWindow handler is just a very simple hello world program that creates a div and sets the text of that div to hello world. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, if I want to change that, I just set the onNewWindow handle directly. And the initialize it has two parts: initializing, and second part is setting the on-to-window handler. Now, but throughout this examples that we're going to be giving now, we're just using to set on-to-window because we already got clog running and initialized. In this case, like I said, this would just go ahead and it would set up the on-to-window handler, and we created now a brand new div, in this particular case, one that says New World. So again, when we go ahead and run it, so now at this point, our application will be responding to this specific thing, our new specific function. Now, of course, New World 2 is going to come up because again, we're handling a different handler, a different function is behind this. Pretty straightforward, nothing different really than most web frameworks that are out there. But you'll see a little bit why clog is a lot more than just a web framework. Go ahead and add a page. Let's see here. Go ahead. Okay, well, we'll do again same thing. Set on new window again, and but the difference here, of course, is we're adding a path onto there. So that's page 2. And let's redefine the default page a little bit as well. Let's go ahead and let's give this. There we go. So now basically we can go ahead and take a look, and again, very straightforward. All right, my website and page 2. Again, very straightforward, and we have 2 pages now set up, or page 1 or page 2. That is the page approach that I mentioned before about how web servers traditionally always worked. You have a page and you have a handler for that page. Now, clog's a little different than that, like I said. So let's start going a little deeper and let's follow through with this. So what I can do is I can set things up in a way that I have access to the page. Even for example, for the REPL, because really what happens is I'm controlling the web page as a screen. So to do that, first of all, we'll go ahead now and we'll make a we'll go ahead now and we'll set up a global variable, and then we're going to modify our handler that we're using. All right, and in this case, we'll go ahead and we'll set it up so that we've actually, basically, we're going to go ahead and we're going to tap the keg. Basically, we're going to go ahead and when you connect to the browser, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pass out to a global the actual body that came in. And that's going to allow us to basically be able to play with the page directly from within the REPL itself. Okay, so let's reset it. Now again, there's nothing here to see yet, but we're going to change that now. So let's go ahead and let's set the background color of the whole page, because basically, like I said, we have the actual body itself available to us now. Let's go ahead and set the background color to orange. And as you can see, our page is now orange. Okay, let's go back and let's make a couple other changes. So let's do something a little bit more interesting now, and let's demonstrate what I mean by the way that clog is about screen, where web pages are about pages. So to get an example of that, let's go ahead and first of all, we're going to have to set the body. Happens to be the way the browsers work is the actual browser is empty. We change the background color, but the actual browser itself has a limit in terms of the fact that actually there's nothing there, so it's just an empty space. So we're going to take the body element and we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill the entire area. Okay, and let's go ahead and basically we set the viewport width and the viewport height 100% of each to the body's height and width. So now the entire body height and width is accessible. And then we're going to go ahead and let's make a little creative handler for on mouse move. And there we go. So basically we're going to set on mouse moves a handler. It's going to attach it to the body. So basically any time the mouse moves over the body. In this case, again, we made the body the whole size of the viewport, so this way everything will be responsive everywhere. And we're basically, every time the mouse moves, then this function is going to be called. So the function that we have here is a lambda function again, and in this case it takes two parameters. So one is the object that was affected, so in this case it's always going to be the body, and then the data, which basically the mouse data, that is going to come in through our data parameter. Let's ignore the object, doesn't matter, but then we'll go ahead and we'll set up. So we're going to have mark is our little X, so wherever the mouse is going to go, it's going to create a span in that place. I tell the browser that the X mark is set with positioning fixed. Now fixed essentially is the when you want to place an element in HTML somewhere on a page exactly based on pixels, then you use the fixed system. And in this case, we're going to put the left. We're going to go ahead and set it up and the top to basically be wherever the mouse was. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's take a look at that on the browser. We're going to see now, boom, as soon as I bring it in, there you go. Like I said, you really created the smallest drawing program. Then we'll go ahead and we'll install that, and let's do that by going ahead and there we go. Set on new window handler is basically going to be our setup quick draw function. So let's take a look at the browser again. So we've gone ahead and we've installed our set on new window with the setup quick draw, and there you go. So we got our drawing going on. One thing I'll point out, which I think is worthwhile, is you know, when you're developing an app and you set up a new window handler either in code or in the REPL, and you want to basically make a change to, example, the setup quick draw function. If you in fact pass the function to set it on new window handler, then essentially it's that specific function, meaning any redefinition of that function is not the same function. So if you go now to the web browser and you reset it, then the old setup quick draw that's what's going to run. And that's okay, of course, if that's your intention, but most of the time when you're developing, you'll make changes to the set on new window handler, or any handlers like this for that matter. Instead of passing the function, pass the symbol. And if you do that, then funcall, which basically is what's going on underneath, is going to look at the symbol and go from there where the symbol is pointing to for the function object. So actually that works out a little better. So then if we can go ahead and we can, let's say for example, take our old definition and we can go back here and let's say for example, boom, boom, boom. Now we can make our other change we talked about before, 100 VH, right? Okay, and basically now then, boom. So what happened? We redefined setup quick draw. The symbol though didn't change. Setup quick draw. The function object changed. That function object now is going to be associated with it. So if we go back to the browser, we would actually see that there's no more scroll bars because we're looking at the actual new window exactly as it was before. The key point here, of course, is that that if you didn't do this, then you would have to call setup new window handler again with the actual function in order to basically associate the new function object with our handler. So just keep that in mind. Again, just as far as the approach, they're both valid. They both have different purposes, but that's the case. What I'd like to do is actually take us back for a second and look more carefully at the difference between a page-based approach and the screen app approach. And the reason, of course, is that where clog excels is at the screen or app approach as versus a page approach. So if you can see clearly the difference, this will help. So let's go ahead and let's load into let's go ahead and load in something that's a page approach. So if you take a look here, what we've done basically is we created a handler, initialized clog, created a handler, and essentially we've created our first page, a link to page 1, link to page 2, and we've gone ahead and we set up a handler which is linked to page 1, another one to page 2, and again this is the, so we have our default and 2 other pages, the 3-page website quickly created. That's great, and really we haven't done much more other than creating a really great way of packaging up a nice web page, type app and nice clean API. That's great, but that's not much. That's not the key to clog. And I'd like to point out in general that this whole idea of the page approach, that's the original web. The web is something which we serve out pages, and it was about documents, and that's still the best approach when you're trying to just serve out massive amounts of docs and information. However, most websites today are not about that. Now, in order to be able to do something of an app-like approach on the web, so kludges like JSON and JavaScript and XML, HTTP requests, all kinds of sorts of ways to create the illusion of being stateful on a stateless web. That's what came about, right? And then that's what people are still using. In fact, almost every framework that's out there is still using that approach. And of course, that's not really going to give you the equivalent. For example, like when I was younger, you could sit down and whip out a GUI with a full app in a matter of no time, and say Visual Basic or Delphi or various other different methods. And I tell you, it was much, much more efficient than what I'm seeing today. I can't believe how much time is wasted on things that should never be in the programmer's reach, except for the first guy that developed it. I mean, why would anybody be busy, in other words, or playing around with tiny details of transports and things like that? It makes no sense. Now there are a number of web frameworks which have come out in the years to help with this, but again, I'm going to tell you this: the difference is when you have an approach where you're approaching things as a screen, everything changes, right? So let's take a look for a moment at what this looks like. In other words, just a real quick look at it. Okay, so here we go. This is our web page, page 1, page 2. Again, this is really straightforward type of a web page. I mean, obviously, again, I really hope this is not what you're gonna do with clog. I mean, you can. Listen, it's there for the taking. But listen, this is not what I hope you do. All right, this is boring. This is the old web. This is HTML in its old form. We need something new. Give me a second. I'll show you something better. Okay, so let's take a look at this alternative approach, the one I'm talking about, and hopefully going to get you excited about it, interested in taking a look at. So let's go ahead and paste it on here, and let's take a look at it. So we're going to use our set on new window. In this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it on the path of /screen. And again, it's very similar, just like you would be setting up a web page that we saw before, but actually this is going to be a little different. Take a look. So first of all, we'll set up display is going to be where we're going to be displaying the results of clicking 2 different buttons that we're going to create. And so let's go ahead now, take a look at our, so we're going to set on click. We're going to set our on click handler to a button that we create called page 1. And it's going to set the display text to hello from page 1, and we're going to create another button, which is again, which is our page 2 button, and basically we're going to set the on-click handler to go ahead and call hello from page 2. So same basic, text from the previous example, but actually set up a little more app-like, and we create our rule at the bottom of the text. And we go ahead now and we set up our create a div in the middle where it's going to get our results. Now let's go ahead now. Let's put that in the system, right? And basically, let's go take a look at that on our browser. Here on our browser, let's go ahead now. Let's go to the screen page we just created. All right, and there you go. Now I've set it up a little nicer, easily with 2 different buttons. And there you go, page 1, page 2, and we have not changed pages. We're accessing this particular page, the screen page, as a whole, and we're doing whatever we want on that page without going back and forth, round trip, HTML, page requests, etc. But we're doing everything live. There's actually a TCP/IP connection that stays alive between the case of clog and the actual page, and in this case using WebSockets, and that page is alive right there and then. I mean, I could add handlers for looking for my mouse, as we saw before the draw program. I could add handlers, that run at various different times. I could have, for example, again, imagine I have this page, I could hook it up to a sensor someplace that somebody does something, and boom, it appears here right away. And the reason is everything is live. It's not dead. It's a screen approach. Things are different. Now, of course, these examples are still very simple. Most of the tutorials, again, are very basic until you get towards the end. Then we start, using some of the higher level features of clog. And clog basically adds, on top of the basics that HTML would give you, and the basic tools, and pretty much most of HTML is bound. There may be some portions which I haven't gotten to or missed, but they'll, again, they're not usually the major portions that we use when programming, putting together our systems. But if something's missing, if you can fill it in yourself, and we'll add it, or tell me, and I'll go ahead and make sure it ends up as part of clog. But for the most part, like I said, most of HTML5 is all pretty much there, including canvas controls, and various other things like that. But clog also offers a few other things, and this is my point. Clog offers a few things that are on top of all that. So let's give one example. Some of the things I'm working on now as part of 1.1. So that you'll find this already in GitHub. Let's go ahead and let's get the 27th tutorial, and that 27th tutorial basically is very simple. It's notice it's not very many lines. In this case, we're using something called panel boxes and panel box layout, which just makes everything a lot more app-like. Throw your panel at the top, panel on the bottom, panel on the sides, and that sort of thing. And here is actually a very simple application that goes ahead and creates a little image viewer. Again, just to give an example of where things are going as well. But again, even if you take it for what it is, it's already very ready. And I'll show you a couple things, not many, but a couple things that I think are very worthwhile. Let's go ahead and run tutorial 27 so we can take a quick look at that. And well, here we have again just a very in a couple lines of code that we saw. Boom, you've got an app for doing an image viewer. Again, still very simple. I do again one or two more little small examples. I think are worthwhile to get a feel for what clog is already offering out of the box in terms of some higher level functions. But whatever's not there certainly can be built, and the tools are there already. So that was our very simple image viewer from our tutorial, and certainly I think actually tutorial 22 would be very worthwhile pointing out, as that basically will show you an example of clog's desktop environment that can be used. It's very simple desktop environment, actually pulling up a browser, drawing page, run a movie in there, no sample would be worth it without having that. All right, various different dialog box types, that are offered. Toast warnings. And again, so it's a nice little desktop environment. You can build little apps quickly. You just basically, pass to it your menus, and then you develop your page basically. A handler to handle the page, and that's it. You go with it, whatever it is you're looking for. Let's actually go ahead and let's see. For example, again, I've written a couple of demos that go beyond this. Again, you've already probably seen a very simple demo I've got here. For example, little video games, etc. Again, yeah, all of these things are very, very simple. These are all small, little, tiny programs. I mean, it's quite amazing what you're able to do. Now again, all of this is sitting in a browser, right? And actually, oh, here we have. Let's actually go ahead. Let's run for a moment just to take a look at this. Let's see. Which is number 3, I think. Yeah. There we go. So actually, here, for example, is an actual Lisp environment. Where basically I can evaluate files. Let's see here. You know. It even has completion of parentheses and everything else already there, etc. And here, go ahead and evaluate it. I mean, again, again, the tools are there, the pieces are there. It's really amazing. This is just really great, a lot of fun. That's just the point. And actually, the biggest part of all this is the fact that if you're trying to teach somebody how to program. I'm trying to teach my kids now how to program a little bit, and I decided I'm going to use Lisp as the first language for them. And I'll tell you, this is just really a lot of fun. I mean, the fact that you can go ahead and control and manipulate things right there and then simply with a really simple API. I mean, this is just a lot of fun. That's just the point. I really hope you all, take the time to take a look at clog. Here I'll actually show you a demo. If I actually demo 2, which is again a very simple, let's say Joe. And then we can go ahead and let's say we grab our example and let's open up next door too. And yeah, so Schmo, right? This is basically, again, your little chat application. You want to chat around the office. Boom, it's there. And by the way, actually take a look at that. Take a look at that demo because I'll tell you, you'll see the fact that everything's alive and in the same memory space. You can play back and forth with each of them. You know what? It just again, I really enjoy myself. I really have a great time with this, which again is the most important part. Well, obviously the most important part is that you're able to get your job done and what you need to do. But it's just really neat the sort of things that you're able to do and really be able to enjoy. Here again, a very simple database-driven web app, for example, right? So again, do it here. So I think admin was the password, right? So I'm logged in, and this is all running in a little SQL server behind. Let's go ahead and add a new page. This is going to be my menu entry, page 3. Hi there, hello, and boom, again, these are literally, these are short little tiny programs that get you tremendous functionality right out of the box, very quick. Again, these are just little samples that what can be done with very, very little work with clog. I don't know. I'll tell you the way I design software. I basically design the API first, and then I make the software fit the API. I want something that feels easy and nice, something that I'm going to keep in my head and that I can train people to do quickly. So that's the way clog works. Now, granted, the very base level clog is revolving around HTML, which is itself, a mess. But again, we're adding some higher level levels. But if you know some basic HTML, you'll very quickly get around to almost anything, if not everything you possibly do with any other framework. But you do it in such a really, really neat, fun way. And again, since it's live, it's amazing. So, like I said, that was like a really quick run through as far as clog. And again, there's certainly a lot more that's already there. 27 tutorials, 4 demos. I've got already a database tool in there for just very basic use of SQLite. And like I said, right now also I'm working on a GUI builder. That's something hopefully I'll have some basic demo stuff out soon. Then they're planning on adding a few more things. I don't know if the GUI builder, I'm hoping something basic will be in 1.1 when I close it out. But in addition to that, I certainly plan on adding things like clog data. Just basically to help connect databases to fields and things like that, just making it the turnaround time for using a GUI builder and producing apps that are database oriented a lot quicker and faster. I mean, this is just a really great tool, you know, in an IT type of environment. It's an authorization tool for setting up, you know, tiers of authorization. And again, almost every website, almost every app today has got to have some sort of security. So getting some of that stuff out of the way quickly and having it ready, waiting for you, that's part of the goal behind that. And clog monitor is again, you know, one of the things that I found that often ends up not being there from the beginning in terms of the thought process is making sure it's logging and usage, and more importantly, some security logging, and just being able to monitor your system is running well and operating the way it should be. And of course, I mean, you know, Lisp offers all kinds of great ways to fix things when there's something going wrong, but you got to know they're going wrong. So again, that's really where clog is right now. It's, like I said, it's a short but quick introduction. Maybe hopefully get you interested in taking a look at it. You know, it's like I said, I'm having a ball. I really enjoy it. You know, Lisp actually opens up some really nice, beautiful ways to be able to work and extend this type of development so quickly. You know, again, this, you know, the entire clog is actually based on a much older system that I wrote in Ada. And I tell you, it's again, there's no question that it has its place, and it's really a great, solid system that's been used for years now. But the fact that I can so quickly add more on top of things, and the development process is so much quicker in Lisp that it really kind of makes you question a lot of things. In terms of the approaches that have become the mainstay. But anyways, that's a whole other discussion, and now not the time for it. But I really thank you.